A one, a two, a three, a four. What up, y'all? Babylon 5 Podcast. It's your boy Jermaine Event. How's it going? Faithful host Jermaine Event. Episode 43. Calling this one Distractions. Feel like that's the overall theme of maybe just one topic, but I figure let's just go ahead and call the whole episode that, Distractions. It's episode 43, Babylon 5 Podcast. Once again, it's your boy, Jermaine Event. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the social medias. If you want to follow my podcast on Instagram and Twitter, want to follow this podcast on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Babylon 5 Pod. You can follow my personal account at My Name is Jermaine. You can email this podcast if you feel so inclined. Sorry. At Babylon5podcast@gmail.com. You can follow this podcast at babylon5.podbean.com. You can listen to this podcast on Podbean, Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, nigga, pretty much anywhere podcasts play. If you guys have Xbox One, maybe pretty soon, I'm probably not gonna get PlayStation just because I've been Xbox since 360. I got my gamer tag already. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm already, like, maybe I could get a PlayStation and get that gamer tag, like, right now. But, like, I've been Xbox for so long. I see no reason to switch up. Unless they come out with some exclusive games over there that I can't deny, I don't plan to go over there. So, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get an Xbox when that comes out. So if you got Xbox, go ahead and add a brother at SauceBoss414. That's my gamer tag. You can go ahead and check out the merchandise at teespring.com/stores/BOFpod-shop. You can watch me play with myself at twitch.tv/Babylon5Pod. And you can become my patrons. Go to patreon.com/Babylon5Pod. It's episode 43. How are you guys all doing? Hoping everybody's taking care of themselves. I'm sure a lot of you are still not able to resume work, get back to what we thought of as a normal life. That's because we're still going through a pandemic. So everybody still, like, take care of yourself, wash your hands, do everything you need to. You know what I'm saying? There's still a pandemic. And don't be distracted, you know. Be courteous of others. Be courteous of others, I would say. Hope everybody's doing all right. You know, I remember when MKE Black, they put me on their app, and Philip, he hit me up. He was like, yo, I didn't know what to necessarily, like, label it, because he called it, like, comedy podcasts, like, sports. And I'm like, dude, I don't know, like, carte blanche comedy podcast. I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess it's if you find me funny, then this is a comedy podcast. If not, then it's not a comedy podcast. I don't know if I necessarily, and I never really, well, I mean, I think I'm funny. but even with that in mind, I didn't intend for this necessarily to be a comedy podcast. So if you laugh, you laugh. If you see it that way, great. You know, I think I'm funny. But regardless of that, this is Babylon 5. This is a carte blanche podcast. You know, I try to talk about what I find interesting weekly, you know. And I talk about MMA weekly because I fucking love martial arts. You know, ever since I was a kid watching kung fu movies at my Aunt Rena's house, you know. One second. So I was told, I saw that my cousin Steven said he's going to pull the plug on my Aunt Rena today, actually, the day that I'm recording this. I haven't seen anything. I don't know. I don't know if he's posted on Facebook about it since. Uh, I got a call maybe a couple weeks ago from my cousin Maurice telling me that Rena was in the hospital. She was in apparently for months, and like nobody really knew about it. And well, I guess some people knew, but not everybody. You know, Steven, her son, didn't know about it for months that she was in the hospital. So, well, he was just hard to get in contact with. That's just a whole other story. But so I don't know. She was just, her health was declining. She was going in and out of consciousness, going into comas. Had a few comas. There was coming back, and it's like usually they get a lot better before it gets pretty worse. But got to the point where my aunt, uh, she can't speak, she can't really do anything without machines. Basically a vegetable at this point. And I was thinking back on my Aunt Rena, you know, and it's like she's more like a grandmother to me than my aunt, you know, more like a grandmother because I spent most of my childhood there. Most summers were always at Rena's house. I was always at Aunt Rena's house. That was where everybody was at. We was always at Rena's, until like I'm gonna be real blunt with y'all. There was we spent most summers when they lived over on like 45th and North, and they were uh they were pretty well known people. Well, they were just it was just a pretty dope neighborhood. We were always there. Everybody was always hanging out. Most people were always at that house. You know what I'm saying? In the neighborhood, she was just like that kind of person. People like thought of her as a mom. Also, it was just one of those houses, which is similar to my grandma on my dad's side. Like at her funeral, it was just a packed house and just all these people talking about how my grandmother like tucked them in when they didn't have anybody. Their parents weren't around or had to work jobs or maybe just didn't have money and couldn't take care of them. But my big mama gave them a place to stay and all that, you know. And it was a similar situation with my Aunt Rena. She always had people over there, and all the people in the neighborhood came over. Everybody like hung out over there. You could stay over there. It was the place, It was the place in the neighborhood for a number of reasons, It was just the place to be. And but until like so I mentioned Steven. There's another brother, Marvin, my older cousin Marvin, who has a reputation of being a little bit of a hothead, a little bit of a bully, and some of his beef from the neighborhood. I don't know. These are stories that I heard. They may not even necessarily be that accurate, but this is just what I heard. I'm just gonna give you guys a story of Aunt Rena's house. So for one, I heard some beef bled over from Marvin that he bullied some guys down the street. But Marvin got arrested and went to prison. Marvin was just like always in and out of prison. He was never really home that often, but when he was there, he would like stir up some shit. And he was a pretty muscular dude. As I said, he spent a lot of time in and out. Well, like I barely saw him. I think since like he was like 14 or 15, he was like mostly in prison. So like from that point on, I rarely saw him. It'd be like real brief that he was home, and then he'd be locked up for years again. So when he was home, he was a relatively muscular young man, and his nickname was Knockout. He was known for knocking niggas out with one punch. That was just his reputation around the block, But when he got locked up again, from what I heard, like the beef spilled over from something that happened with Marvin, and when he was finally gone, they wanted to get retribution. So they ran in the house. My cousin had these fucking rifles, I think. Had these rifles But see, so like everybody was yeah. So he had the rifles, and they ran in and they grabbed the rifles, and there was like a bunch. There was a few people there, probably like 7 people there, including my cousin Steven and my aunt Rena. Probably like 3 or 4 dudes and one other girl, and they come in, grab the shotguns. They take the shotguns, and then they make the dudes, except Steven, like they make everybody fucking strip naked. They stuff them in this little closet, lock it. All the dudes, they just stuff them in the closet naked for whatever reason. It's like a little coat closet. I remember that closet was always packed with coats anyway. And you stuffed all them niggas in that coat. Like, I just remember that closet. Like, Nick, y'all niggas crazy. Y'all stuff niggas in that closet with rifles to their head. So, like, I guess you don't really have a choice. So, and they were going to drown my cousin Steven. They're like running the bathtub, and they're gonna drown my cousin Steven. But my aunt Rena is like hysterically pleading with them not to drown him. And as I said, like everybody, like she was just like that was the place everybody came. You could stay there, come eat there, hang out there. That was where everybody in the neighborhood hung out at that time. I mean, I was there all the time. It was always packed. Everybody was always hanging out there. That was the place to be for a number of reasons. We don't need to go into those reasons, but it was for a number of reasons. There were shotguns there, easily accessible. I mean, rifles, easily accessible, and that was the place to be. We don't need to go into that any further. I digress a little. But so they were there. They were going to drown him. They were going to drown my cousin Steven. My aunt Rena is hysterically pleading with him not to do this. And they say to her, go back to your room, Mom. This has nothing to do with you. You know, they came to murder her son and ultimately decided not to because they had so much love for my aunt Rena, you know. But it was all a beef from her older son, you know, who was just always a hothead, apparently. I don't know. I was a child at the time, you know. I don't even think I was 18 by the time I last saw him. I think last time he got locked up was like right before I was 18. Like I was still like a child for most of the time that I've ever seen him, you know. So that's just from what I heard. And you know what's crazy about that day in particular is that I was supposed to be there. Me and my brothers, we were all supposed to be there. My cousin Maurice, we were all supposed to be over there that day. But my mom called and no one answered the phone. And then my aunt Blanche called and no one answered the phone. And they both just had a bad vibe about that because they all spoke on the phone like every day. Like me and my mom, of course, I live with my mom, but my mom and my aunt Blanche, we lived in the same house in a duplex, and my aunt Rena lived just down the street, like maybe a mile away is where Aunt Rena's place was, and they would all just be on the phone on three-way, pretty obnoxious, because like my mom and my aunt are literally in the same building on the phone, three-way down the street. Y'all can all just meet up. You know what I'm saying? Just meet up. But I mean, they did meet up, but they'd be on the phone all day. So because my aunt Rena did not answer the phone, they just got a bad vibe. We didn't go over there. Usually, we would walk with my cousin Maurice, who's a little older than us, you know. So we'd walk with him. And but because they weren't answering the phone, they didn't feel comfortable with us going over there. And then later on, we found out what the fuck was going on, you know. Just a little more information here on why I say my Aunt Rena is more of a grandmother. So my mom's mom, my grandmother, my actual grandmother, Christine Curtis, she died in surgery when my mom was 8. And immediately, my grandfather relinquished custody of all the children who were underage. My mom was the youngest of 16 children. that my grandmother gave birth to. And yeah, so, and she died in surgery when my mom was 8. Grandfather immediately relinquished custody of my mom and my aunt Blanche, possibly my uncle James too, and maybe my uncle Willie. I think Uncle James was actually put up for adoption and adopted by a white family. I'm pretty sure that's what my mom told me when I was younger. I'd have to ask her again, but I'm pretty sure she said my uncle James was adopted by a white family. But my aunt Rena, who was already an adult at the time and moved from Mississippi to Milwaukee, adopted my mom and my aunt Blanche and brought them to Milwaukee. So, hence, now I live in Milwaukee and rep the Milwaukee Bucks. You know what I'm saying? That's how that happened. Because my aunt Rena adopted her when she was 8 years old and raised her from there on. And then when my mom had kids, we were pretty much like Rena assumed the role for, even with Blanche, of the grandma. We all went over to Blanche's house. She was more of our grandma than everything, than anything else, than an aunt. So, unfortunately, from what I'm told, they've pulled the plug on her today. From what I've told, I don't believe in anything, but you know, I just hope, I hope she's all right. You know, I just hope she's all right. So just rest in peace to my aunt Rena Mae Lee. Rest in peace. So Dave Chappelle put out this little short, little. It wasn't even a special. Well, I mean, it was like I'll say it was special. It wasn't necessarily like it wasn't comedy at all. It wasn't stand up. But he talks about like George Floyd and watching the video and how he calls out for his dead mother, and he's like I've only seen it one other time, and he's like that's when my dad was on his deathbed calling for his grandmother. And he was like, so he knew at that moment, watching that video, that George Floyd knew that he was going to die. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't comedy at all. He was just speaking very bluntly about the subjects and everything that's going on. And he mentioned Don Lemon called him out and other celebrities for not being out in the streets and speaking out and using their celebrity influence to do something. And 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 Dave Chappelle's like didn't you already do stand up about this? Like, he's like, who the fuck cares what Ja Rule thinks at a time like this? You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like, yeah, I've already said this. Like, why are you guys looking to celebrities for in a tragedy? Like, why do you care what fucking celebrities think? So he's just like, you know what I'm saying? You shouldn't look to him. Like, it's not his place. He's like, the people are doing it right now. Listen to the people. And that's some real shit right there. Then he goes in on Candace Owens and her stanky ass pussy. He went in on it and he just, he mentioned that he hadn't personally smelled it, but if he did, he'd tell. He's just assuming that it's fucking stank ass pussy. And let's just assume he's right, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just assume he's right. He mentioned Chris Dorner. He mentioned the Chris Dorner situation. And what's interesting here is, I don't know how old I was when it happened. I don't think it was it that long ago? Maybe it was, but I don't know. It wasn't that long ago. But I just remember it as him being a rogue cop. That's all I remember hearing about it, was just like a rogue cop, and he like killed some people. I hadn't even really like heard too much of the story of what happened. But Chris explains that he was a black cop with a white female partner, and they went to go do like serve a warrant or something, and like the black cop witnessed the white lady like rough up the dude, and he like was disgusted and like filed a complaint to his boss, to the HR department, about his partner, and he was then fired. as a police officer, and he fought it and like lost. He like fought the termination and lost, and then he ultimately writes a manifesto where he says like Dave Chappelle's a genius, Kevin Hart's a genius, and then he like basically sets out his plan to like terrorize the people who work for the LAPD and their families, and then he does it apparently, and I didn't even know that first part. I never heard that first part that he like filed a complaint against his partner and was fired for doing so. I never heard that part of the story. I was just like instantly like, holy shit, when did that happen? I was like, nobody told me that happened. All I heard was like rogue cop. That's all I remember hearing. Like rogue cop killed somebody or some shit like that. I had no idea. Well, mainly because I was like, if that's the case, then like 98% of them are rogue cop. I was like, I've never heard that part. I've never heard that part. So they say that like when they found like the cabin or some shit, he was in like Black Bear or Brown Bear or some shit. He was somewhere and they found him in a cabin. He said like 400 400 plus police officers. He said no less than 400 police officers showed up to the location they said he was at, and they like Swiss cheese this nigga, just lit this nigga, shot that place up. And he was like, do you know why 400 plus officers showed up? Because when they heard what happened, they heard that they saw them in that. So like, how can they, so there's no way they can't understand how the people are responding to seeing the videos of George Floyd. Just recently, they shot and killed some black man at a Wendy's in Atlanta. They just burned that Wendy's down. That shit just like in a course of like 24 hours, that Wendy's is now gone. All right. Shit. So like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you heard what happened with this Chris Dorner thing, and it was like those officers saw themselves in that, and 400 plus officers showed up to the spot where Chris Dorner was because they saw themselves in that. And now it's like no one can understand what's going on here. It talks about this John Crawford guy who I'd never even heard of before. It was a guy who apparently was, so he says that Dave Chappelle says he's in his car, he gets pulled over, and the cop is walking up to his car. So Dave Chappelle has his hands on the steering wheel, like both hands on the steering wheel. He's just waiting, like normal things you would do as a black person. And the cop walks up and he says to the cop, "Hello, sir. My registration is in the glove compartment. I'll reach for it right now if you'd like me to." And the guy was like, "Nah, man, I know who you are. You don't like. I don't need to see anything." And like, I think he says like the cop like, he's like, well, end of that story, the cop like let him go with a warning, right? The very next day, John Crawford goes to Walmart to buy stuff to make s'mores with his children, black individual. And while he's at Walmart, he just stops and looks at BB guns. He's just like shopping and looks at BB guns. Some white guy sees him with the BB guns, calls the police that there's some black guy in here with a gun. That same officer that stopped Dave Chappelle rushes in and says, "Drop the weapon." And apparently in the video, like before the person can even register or even react to the demand, like he didn't see the officer. The officer ran behind him, screamed, "Drop the weapon," and then instantly started firing at this young man. Did not give him a chance to turn with this BB gun that they're selling at the store that he's at. He didn't give him a chance. It was the same officer that stopped Dave Chappelle, and he's like, him being Dave Chappelle shouldn't be the only reason that he's not murdered, Like that guy shouldn't have to be Dave Chappelle to not be murdered in that situation. He was doing absolutely nothing wrong. And he was murdered for doing absolutely nothing. I just got a lot of praise for Dave Chappelle, man. You know, when he came here, he did a show after the shooting over at Miller, which turned out to be like niggas were being racist to some fucking for years, pretty much being racist to all the minorities, but there was being racist to this black dude at Miller, and he fucking snapped apparently, and came back and shot up a bunch of motherfuckers. Had this shit happened like right now, that guy would be looked at like a fucking martyr right now. Anywho, but Dave Chappelle came here, did a show, donated the money made from the show to the families of the people that died in that shooting, which is pretty fucking dope, regardless of what the circumstances may have been. That's an amazing gesture in it all. In it of it all, you know, but it's an amazing gesture. I just got a lot of praise for Chappelle, and when he came out with this, and there's no jokes, it's just him being real, man, and he got real. He got real at the end. And was talking. Started talking about like just I don't know, like things that happened to the police, like during all these protests back like years ago, and I had never heard about any of this stuff. I'd honestly never heard about any of it. I would I think I would hear in the news about people talking about attacks on police, and I was like, dude, that's never happened. I would hear that and be like, that's never happened. Like, no one attacks police. Like that was my thought. But apparently, like, there's like crazy amount of attacks. They're well justified in saying these things. I was like, dude, I had no idea these things were happening, but I was also completely uninformed fully on this Dorner situation. I didn't even know what led to him being a rogue cop. I don't even think that part of the story was even really put out there too much. That's a very interesting part of that story. Let that story happen right now and let the Miller story happen right now. And I guarantee just naturally they would be covered differently in the moment. But I digress on that. My hat's off to Dave Chappelle. The things this brother does are pretty dope. Does some pretty dope shit. I fucks with this young man. He also what he did was this is pretty brand new special that he did. He did it with an audience. Everybody got like tested for their temperature and all that. So it's like, all right, you're setting up some protocols so we can have some shows. We can have something. Let's get it going, man. If I gotta wear a face mask to come to the Chappelle show, that's cool. I will do it in a second. I'll do it every minute that I'm there. Like, just tell me where to be. Tell me, like, I'll bring the mask. Just let me know. Just let me know when. Let's just get it going. If we gotta do it, we gotta do it. But I'm supposed to be going to see fucking Joe Rogan in November. All right, let's not fuck that up. All right, let's not fuck that up. I was hoping shit would get. I was hoping by November they was like, you know what? Fuck it. We're doing everything. We're just going back to normal. Wear a mask. Like, not normal. Everybody's got to wear masks. Maybe even check temperatures places. That'd be cool. But, yeah. Niggas got to wear masks and shit. And it's like, just get back to doing shit. Just a mandatory mask. I'll be into that. NBA season might restart. But, niggas is hitting some snags. Hitting a few snicks. Few Snickers. Yeah. I guess the niggas had an all players Zoom meeting, and pardon me one moment. Yeah, sorry. So apparently these niggas had an all players Zoom meeting where a significant amount of players raised concerns about starting right now. Apparently, Kyrie Irving led the charge, and his stance is basically like there's just a lot of systematic racism with everything like what I was just talking about with Dave Chappelle, with all the protests and whatnot going on around the world. Japan just did in Tokyo. They just did a Black Lives Matter protest. With everything that's going on in the world, there's a large number of NBA players that don't want to restart the season right now because they feel like it'd be too much of a distraction from the social change that we're actually trying to make. And then it was like Kyrie Irving apparently led the charge on that. which I feel like I respect him for that, but at the same time, people still associate uh, Kyrie Irving with being a flat earther, and so they like and like they just generally the opinion of Kyrie Irving is that he's kind of like off to be like that is like the general opinion. There's like that story about Kyrie when he walks in to vote, he sees Vogel, coach, was it Frank Vogel or one of them coaches? But he walks in and he just like asks him like what does success mean to you or some shit like that. Like he asked him some question like that, or the person was like good morning, and he just like and that was like his question. That was like how his response to good morning was like, what does success mean to you? And they were trying to frame it like he's just a weird dude. You know what I'm saying? So like when he led the charge, like people were pretty much just trying to clown Kyrie for that moment. So don't let his reputation and how people are coming off with coming off against what he's saying. Don't let that distract you from what he's saying. People like in aging LeBron James are all for resuming immediately. And it's like I see your side of it. This might be one of your last years, you know, and you guys are the best team in the West. You might not, let's say you end the season right now. LeBron might not even get Anthony Davis back next year. You know what I'm saying? There's a chance Anthony Davis does not re-sign with the Lakers next year, if there even is a next year. You know, who knows when the season would actually be able to restart and what that team would look like. So an aging LeBron is like, oh, no, man, it wouldn't be a distraction. We can go. Pat Beverly was like, yo, if LeBron's playing, everybody's playing. Which I'm like, that's understandable. I saw Steven Jackson was saying, he was reiterating what Kyrie was saying, was like it'd be too much of a distraction. Everybody would be too focused on the playoffs and posting about that instead of posting about everything that's going on. And man, I personally felt like if the NBA continued on TV, if the NBA continuing on TV from Orlando where fans can attend, if that alone is enough to take attention away from the movement of what's happening, then who were the real allies? Did we even really have allies? If that's the case, if it's like, oh no, niggas is hooping, I ain't finna be out here marching. It's LeBron versus Giannis in the finals, nigga. It's like, nah, did you really care about the movement then? If that's your stance on it, if you was out there the whole time, but now LeBron's playing, so you're not fucking with the movement no more. I don't feel like, I feel like niggas can go to the march and stream the game on a phone if it's that bad. You know what I'm saying? I could stream the game from my phone. So like, if it's that bad, I don't think it's that much of a distraction. I don't agree with that stance. And plus, the Bucks are pretty much the favorite to win the title right now. So let's go ahead and just finish it up, or just give them the championship. Also, this is what I feel. This is interesting here, right? So I feel like if the season were to resume, and if players like Kevin Durant per se are cleared to play, or they're healthy enough to play, and they simply choose not to play, they should be like forfeiting some kind of pay. You know what I'm saying? Like there should be some penalties in there. They're not gonna like I'm not saying like, no, these players, if you're not gonna play, blah blah blah. But I'm saying like if there's a pandemic going on, I felt like y'all should have definitely based a lot of the arguments here on the fact that there's a pandemic going on. I feel like that should have been a part of the argument. But they chose not to throw that in there. From what I saw, it's mainly about like not distracting from the movement. But I think they should throw the pandemic and what we're going on in there. Because if you look at, I've seen like, and this is me on a smaller level. Yes, crazy, wow. But I've seen friends who have posted that they've either been fired when their business has opened very like what they consider too soon, in a pandemic, which is what's happening now. The NBA is on hiatus because of the pandemic, which I don't understand why wasn't that part of the conversation? Why am I not seeing any post about that after the players' Zoom meeting, which blows my mind. But they didn't lead with that. But anywho, so they could have led with that. So what I'm saying, I saw like a lot of friends talking about how they've either been threatened to be fired if they do not return to work, or they just flat out lose their job. So on this small level, you're threatened with losing your job. If you're Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and you're hypothetically cleared to play and it's fucking playoff time and you're just like, nah, this is too much of a distraction. If that's your excuse here, then them niggas should be like docked pay. You're not going to be like, nah, Kevin Durant, if you don't want to play in this game, well, you're cut. That's never going to happen. Kevin Durant and Kyrie aren't going to lose their jobs because they don't want to play, but like something just got to happen. They got to face some kind of penalties. If you're healthy, if you're under contract, I'm not against players, but it's just like nothing makes you special. As you're saying, like, man, we're human beings just like you. Yeah, you are. So then you're not special here in it, where if the smaller guy, people like me on a smaller level, if I as a fucking manager at a grocery store can't be like, yo, I don't like when the place I work makes no fucking effort to fucking keep their staff healthy. People are often complaining like, dude, how come nobody in your deli ever wears a mask? And it's like, they don't fucking care to make them. They don't give a shit about it. There's no barriers. There's nothing, nigga. There's nothing. They don't give a fuck, nigga. You know what I'm saying? Do I have the option to just be like, I don't feel safe? I don't think we can do this. Nah, because I will be fired. So on the smaller level, there's consequences. So as you niggas, as regular people, as you proclaim repeatedly, when niggas try to act like you should be more than that, you have to face those consequences. So either show up to work if the work fucking starts, or there should be some kind of consequences for these niggas just choosing not to go to work. That's just my random ass stance there. That's just how I feel. I just would love it also, because when the whole pandemic started, I was like, whoa, depending on when this shit start back, my nigga, the Nets about to be a problem. Because I was like, the shit gonna start back, and they gonna have a healthy Durant, a healthy Kyrie. But I think Durant would be healthier before Kyrie, which I think Kevin Durant's like top 3 best player in the NBA. You know what I'm saying? So what does it matter? You don't need Kyrie at that point. You don't need Kyrie at any point, actually. The Nets play better without Kyrie. So you don't need Kyrie at any point. If you definitely have fucking Kevin Durant, top 3 players in the league, him, Ye, and Nay, him, Giannis, and Bron. I say top 3. Ooh, top 4. Throw Kawhi in there, and it's the top 4 between them niggas. And then give Paul George an honorable mention, because I fucks with Paul George. You know what I'm saying? Kaepernick showed up to work every day. Kaepernick protested every day. You niggas can show up. You know how, like, when Eric Garner was choked out, all the players wore I Can't Breathe t-shirts? You niggas are choosing not to show work, even though you would, at that point, have the biggest platform to speak your mind, to do something. I think you guys are missing opportunities here if you choose not to play. You would, at that point, have the largest platform to make an impact. You guys can make it so that, if we had fucking leadership in the Black Lives Matter movement, you could have people come speak. You know what I'm saying? You could have people there, man. You could have shit happen. Y'all got a big platform. Kaepernick, when he was on that sidelines and they were pretending like he couldn't play, pretending like he was hurt week after week, he still went on that sidelines and protested. And it was like, yo, stop protesting. We lying on you, saying you hating on the flag. And we're going to keep lying on you unless you stop protesting. And he was like, nigga, I'm just going to keep protesting. And he was like, nigga, we going to keep lying. And it just keep happening. That's what kept happening. He was like, fuck it. I'm not going to, like, I'm going to keep getting them checks, nigga. But I'm going to keep protesting police brutality. And that's what I think you niggas should do. All right. Show up. Show up to work. How about that? How about if you niggas don't play, at least show up to the site, show up to the game in protest? I don't know. I feel like you niggas, that's a big platform right there. Win a game in the playoffs and just like fucking, what are they going to do? Fine you if you ignore all the questions and just talk about like Black Lives Matter, talk about the current shit that's going on? What, are they going to fine you for ignoring all their questions and talking about Black Lives Matter? I don't think so. I don't think they morally can do it at this point. Try it out. I bet they can't do anything about it. You got a big platform right there that you're just like, nah, man, the league is a distraction. It's 98% of the league is niggas, all right? Still nigga. Light nigga, dark nigga, faux nigga, real nigga. Rich nigga, all right? Still nigga, all right? You got that's a huge platform right there. Yeah, I really wish they had threw the pandemic in there. I think it would have made it a little bit stronger. There's some shit about pandemic. I ain't seen, maybe they did, but I ain't seen nothing. And they should have did that. This weak ass nigga Dana White, he went on First Take to announce some fights. And the nigga on there was like, yo, I don't know too much about UFC fighter pay, but he was like, but I know a lot about sports unions and athlete pay, athletes contracts. And what he didn't mention was that the guy that was talking to Dana White, I didn't jot his name down like a fool, but this African brother, this African American brother with an MBA from Harvard, was like, yo, I gotta I know a lot about these contracts. I have a lot of like sports unions and whatnot. And he was just basically saying that like he was like, never mind what's happening right now with John Jones and Jorge Masvidal. The UFC has had a long history of fighters complaining that they aren't being paid accurately, and he was like, don't you think that would like show that the fighters needed like a union, like there should be a fighters union? And like Dana White was like, nah, man, like I told Jorge, blah, 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 he just signed a new contract, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, John Jones, he just signed a new contract. And he's like, these guys can fight, blah, 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 but given the thing, like maybe they just don't want to fight. There's no gate. Mm-hmm. And the other guy was like, all right, but I'm saying that without all those guys, I'm just saying to you that it's pretty evident to me that the fighters need to set up a union. And Dana White just kept trying to dismiss it, trying to say that like, oh, everybody's attacking him. And it's like, dude, nobody is actually attacking you at all unless you are offended by paying people a fair wage. Like, why are you offended by that? You represent this company. This fucking company that's owned by like this other company, WME. You represent this company and you're just like, nah, we ain't paying these niggas nothing. You're getting $8,000 to show up and you're getting $8,000 more if you win. What I found out, Aljamain Sterling said he, for his first fight, first contract in the UFC, is $8 to show up, $8,000 to show up, $8,000 to win. And then, so then after, let's say he wins, that's $16,000, pretty much cut that in half for the state. Then pretty much cut that, you cut a chunk out of the $8,000 that you have left. after taxes from management. Then you have to pay for the gym that you're training at. They get an already percentage that you've signed with them. But let's say you, like as he was saying, he trains with Matt Serra and Ray Longo. They're older guys. He has to pay for their hotels when they come with him. So like he has to pay for and they're just like older and they prefer that they have two separate rooms. So he like each time has to pay for two separate rooms for each night for these older guys. All that he's paying for that personally. So maybe at the end of the day he's going home with like $3,000. Because it's not just those two guys. He's paying the nutritionist. He's paying all these other people. Like it's still like it's fucking crazy when it all breaks down. And Dana White takes it personal when these motherfuckers are like, I seen somebody was talking about how like, which fighter was it? I forget which fighter it was, but he was saying like he feels like fighters should, if you're in the UFC, you should at least make like 100,000 a year, like minimum, just starting out. And I'm like, dude, that's for like that should be fucking minimum. Why not? Because at least like at that point, it could be like if you sign that first contract for 100,000, let's say it's like 50 G's for 2 fights, and you lose those 2 fights, you don't work hard enough, you lose those 2 fights, and you're out of the UFC. It's like fuck, you fucked that up. But at least you've like made enough where you can try to change some things. You can quit your day job. You can like actually focus fully on being a fighter in the UFC. Most of these people, it's fucking nutty. Like Jeff Neal, who I saw fight Mike Perry in Vegas, beat the shit out of him. That was the first fight he had where he was not also working as a full-time waiter. Like, you make like fucking no money in the UFC until like you've been in the UFC for like 5 years. And it's like, and their argument is like the fighters make like, or the UFC keeps bragging about how much money they make. They're making records amount of money, but then fighter pay has like not increased at all. And that's just disgusting to me. It's disgusting. I don't know. Dana White's a bitch. That's how I feel. Nah, man, he just be tripping. He be tripping. I don't feel like the money's, even if the money is coming out of your pocket, nigga, you're rich. You're rich. Let these, I feel like you're only hurting their chance to like grow and build themselves up. They can't focus on doing this full time, and you're perpetuating that. You're keeping it that way. Why don't you want these guys to be, if you're going to sign them to be UFC fighters, why don't you want these guys to be able to dedicate it to this? Actually, like, do it full time. Pay them, like, fucking $100,000 a year. Why not? $50,000? No, I don't think that's enough. 100,000. Final answer. 100,000. So we're going to talk about UFC Vegas 2. Niggas just fought in Vegas. I'm the bad luck guy. Yeah, I'm the bad luck guy. Let's look at it. I made my predictions. First fight, got that wrong. I picked that nigga Ivy to. Okay, so 1. I got that. I got the second fight wrong. They was both quick knockouts. Third fight, I got that right. Julia Avila, I picked her to win. I picked Merab. I got that right. Agapova's a beast. Tyson Nam knocked out Zaruka real quick in the first round. It was pretty nice with a right overhand. Julia Avila beats the shit out of Gina Mazzani with this flurry. It just overwhelmed her. Merab Dvalishvili versus Gustavo Lopez. I don't know why I said his name like that. But Merab dominated this nigga. Just like 13 takedowns, just beat the shit out of this nigga the whole fight. Calls out Sugar Sean O'Malley. I really hope that fight doesn't happen, because I think he beat the shit. I think his wrestling would be too much for Sugar Sean O'Malley. I think his wrestling would be too much for most people in the division. He's fucking amazing with his wrestling. Maria Agapova took on Hannah Seifers. Maria Agapova looks like a fucking... She looks like Joanna Jacek on steroids. Beastie. Super fucking strong and fucking accurate as fuck. Just lighting Hannah Seifers up with crazy punches, strikes, just beating the shit out of Seifers. Or Cyphers. I don't know why I said Seifers. I always say Seifers, but it's actually Hannah Cyphers, which is that's fucking dope. As a rapper, I should know that her name is Cyphers and be like, oh yeah, Hannah Cyphers. I was rooting for Hannah Cyphers as a fan. Hannah Cyphers is 5'1". Maria Agapova is 5'6". Just long limbs and just beat the shit out of her. Took her back while standing. She like caught her with this nasty fucking like head kick and then just like got in for the clinch and just real quickly wrapped around while she was standing, took her back and just like fucking choked her out. It was pretty fucking impressive. I didn't know who Maria Agapova was before this. I think this was her first fight in the UFC. And she looked fucking amazing, dude. Fucking amazing. But I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Seifers was fighting in a weight class she normally doesn't fight. She fights in a weight class below that normally, like she fought 2 weeks ago against Mackenzie Dern, and she was submitted. And then 2 weeks later, she fights Maria Agapova and is submitted again, unfortunately. I hope she's not released. I think she still has potential ciphers, that is, but what is that, like 3-4 losses in a row? But I think the women's division is still pretty flat. Yeah, Jordan Espinoza took on Mark De La Rosa. Mark De La Rosa, man, as I've said, I feel like the whole De La Rosa thing is simply just to have the whole storyline of a married couple in the UFC, but Mark De La Rosa is clearly not ready for the UFC, and I don't think there's any shame in that. But I think there's shame if they keep him around and keep him getting his fucking ass beat. All right? He's getting his ass beat out there. He's not ready for this level of competition. I think maybe leave, go to like PFL. Go to like PFL or Bellator. Make more money in any of those leagues and fucking just fight some guys. I think he could actually be successful in some of those other leagues against people who aren't at this level yet. Give it like a few years and come back. There's no shame in that. But Espinoza just dominated this dude. He dominated Mark De La Rosa as I fucking thought would happen. And I think Mark should be released in the next couple days here. Thought maybe I was going to see it, notification, or maybe that shit wouldn't even pop up on your radar. But I think he's going to be cut pretty soon here. Though they were saying, oh, he's got heart. He's got a lot of heart. He was taking a lot of damage. When they say, oh, that man's got a chin, they've got heart. You could take it, man. That means they're taking a lot of damage. He got beat up in there. Got his fucking ass beat. And they were like, oh, man, he just won't get, he can't. The whole thing was that they felt like anybody else would have been knocked out after taking that many clean shots to the head. But that dude was in the clinch and just fucking squaring off with these, like, just perfect fucking elbows. It was like fucking 6 elbows in a row. And they're like, wow, he's so tough. He won't go out. And it's like, dude, he's not defending from these fucking just clear elbows to the dome, man. Like, he's just in there getting his ass beat. I think he should get cut and not fight in the UFC for a little while at least. And there's no shame in that. Andre Fili versus Charles Jourdain. It was a fucking insane fight the whole time. Jourdain dropped Fili at the end of the first, but Fili was able to get back to his feet at the end of the first, and I think he slammed Jourdain down, and it looked like he really like Jourdain was out of it on the ground there, but it was like not enough time to do anything with it. But by the second, like the momentum shifted, and Fili was like real active, like just like putting it on him, and pretty much it was the same way in the third. Fili was getting some takedowns, and the third just like dominated. Fili won by split decision. Whoever that ref was that gave it to Jourdain, you're a fucking fool. Or not ref, the judge who gave it to Jourdain. You're a fucking fool. Fucking clown. There's just no way that fight should have gone that way. You got Charles Rosa versus Kevin Aguilar. I had Aguilar winning this coming in here, I think so. Um was that my prediction? That was my prediction. Aguilar just like didn't wanna like fucking get in there. I wrote in here like fucking non-stop commercials. They weren't showing the fucking walkouts for me. I don't know if you guys saw it. I would see on Twitter some people were like, "Oh, this walkout song sucks," and I'm like, "Dude, all I'm seeing is AT&T commercials, like non-stop AT&T commercials, like." And then it'd show like a second, like maybe half a second of the next fighter walking out, and then it'd go back to commercials. I was like, this is fucking terrible, dude. I want to see the people walk out. I want to see like if they look confident or not, if they look too amped up, if they're dancing out there like a fucking fool, tiring themselves out. I just want to see it all, you know. So I was just pretty pissed off on those. But Aguilar was like not trying to engage. He was just trying to counter strike. And Rosa was just touching him up just pretty often. Fucking just all over him. And Rosa won by a split decision. He had Marvin Vettori versus Carl Robeson. Those guys had that fucking heated exchange in the hotel when Carl missed weight when they were supposed to fight previously. And then he pulled out of the fight right like before the fight. The day before. Like after the weigh-in, he pulled out. And he missed weight by 4.5 pounds this time around. Like he missed weight by a higher margin this time than he did the first time. And Vettori beat the shit out of this dude. Like really fucked him up with the grappling and just dominated him on the ground. Got I'm pretty sure a first round finish. It was pretty cool. Vettori looks like a beast. He's calling out. They were like, "Who you want to fight?" The only name he said was Israel. He wants a rematch with Israel Adesanya. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, ladies and gentlemen. Jessica Ai took on Cynthia Calvillo in the main event, 5-round main event. A lot of people were fucking hating on it. But I think it turned out to be a pretty great fight. I looked so much fucking bigger than Calvillo to start this fight. I was like, ooh, if Jessica is just like sharper with the striking here, I think she'll be too strong for her. And in the first round, it looked that way. It looked like they were kind of feeling each other out, but I was definitely like landing more. So I was like, oh shit, she's just too bigger than her and too faster than her. This is not gonna go too well. But then Calvillo like takes Ai down in the second round and just like controls her on the ground and like beats her up with strikes, like takes that round and just pretty much continues it. And like in the third round, like Ai looks tired and Calvillo starts to like hurt her with some strikes, and it looks like every time she lands, like Ai's getting like stopped in her tracks. Like she's actually getting hurt by these shots now. Calvillo, the much smaller fighter as you see them too, is like actually hurting Ai. And then she takes her down, beats her up again, takes the third round. Gets another second, gets 2 takedowns in the. No, yeah, she gets 1 takedown in the second or in the third round. Takes that round again, and Ai looks fucking defeated. She goes in her corner, looks defeated. Her corner is like, "Come on," she's like, "Come on, you got this. You can do this." And she was like, "I'm doing it," and I was like, "Bless her heart," you know. She was like, "I'm doing it," and it's like, "No, you're not. You're getting your ass beaten there." And Calvillo gets an early takedown in the fourth, and I was writing that Ai doesn't look too capable of like in BJJ and jiu-jitsu off her back. But as I was typing that, she was able to get back to her feet. And at that point, Calvillo looked exhausted. Calvillo stopped like striking toward the end of the fourth there. But then the fifth round came, and I felt like I needed a finish to win the fight. And then right after I typed that in these notes, fucking Paul Felder was like, "I think Ai needs a finish to win this one." I was like, hell yeah, she does, nigga. I just said that. And I was getting the best of her with the striking and then got another takedown, just controlling her. And I scored it 49-46, and 2 judges also scored it 49-46 for Calvillo. And one scored it 48-47 like a fucking numbskull. You know what I'm saying? Like a fucking numbskull. But that was that. I thought Calvillo looked fucking great. I like the whole mix up. in the division. I just liked it because I picked I to win that fight, going into it, but I like her losing. I like to I like to I just like to see things change. I don't know. I don't know why people are texting me right now. It's like fucking distracting me or some shit. Just gonna talk about next week. Next week we got some fights going on. Curtis Blades taking on Alexander Volkov. That's the name I've been trying to say for weeks. Alexander Volkov's taking on Curtis Blades. It should be a pretty good fight in the main event. I don't really. They're both good fighters. It's gonna be a good fight. I don't really have too much to say. If I'm gonna make a random prediction, I'm gonna go with Volkov. All right, I'm going Volkov. You got Josh Emmett versus Shane Burgos. Raquel Pennington versus Marion Renaud. Bilal Muhammad taking on Lyman Good, so I'm naturally rooting for Bilal Muhammad. Jim Miller taking on Roosevelt Roberts. I think he just fought recently, did he not? I think so. I think he just recently fought. So that should be interesting. Fight. Clay Guida taking on Bobby Green. Should be interesting. Got Tisha Torres taking on Brianna Van Buren. Real interested in that. I'm rooting for Brianna Van Buren in that. She reminds me of like a mini Daniel Cormier. I think she'll be too much for Tisha Torres in there. Tisha Torres is the veteran, and I think she might be the favorite. I don't know. I gotta look at the odds for that one, but I'm definitely going with Brianna Van Buren in that one. And you got Roxanne Modafferi taking on Lauren Murphy. Definitely got Roxanne Modafferi taking on that one. I think they should have moved that. Maybe switch that one with the Raquel Pennington. Oh shit. Yeah, so I got I got the Modafferi fight. Fuck. I just was looking at these fucking screenshots and then I fucking tapped something and now they're gone. All right, here they go. Here they go. And also, so that's next week. But other fights were announced. Fight Island fights were announced. July 11th, you got Kamaru Usman in the main event taking on Gilbert Burns. Apparently, everybody was hit up for that fight, but they all were given lowball offers to fight Kamaru, and most people turned it down except for his teammate, Gilbert Burns. That should be a fucking crazy fight. They train together. Who would know your weaknesses better than the person you train with, every day? So that's fucking crazy. That's the main event for the welterweight championship. Co-main event is Alexander Volkanovski taking on Max Holloway for the featherweight championship. Or Max is challenging Volkanovski for the featherweight championship in a rematch. Should be fucking crazy. I was just listening to an interview of Volkanovski saying his plan is to finish Max Holloway. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see. Then you got Peter Yan taking on Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight title. I don't care about that fight. How about the double knockout? And before that, you got in women's strawweight matchup, a rematch between Jessica Andrade and Rose Namajunas, the return of Thug Rose, who was unfortunately slammed on her head by Jessica Andrade in her last fight. And now we have the rematch here. Rose was lighting fucking Andrade up with her stand-up before that. She just was pretty much looking phenomenal in that fight everywhere until she didn't let go of the Kimura and she was slammed on her head. So that happened, and yeah, unfortunately that was the end of that. But yeah, they got the rematch coming up on July 11th, Fight Island, and I'm pretty excited for that. Another fight on the main card is Amanda Ribas versus Paige Van Zandt. I think that's at first I was like, why the fuck is Paige Van Zandt on the main card when but it's nah, this is a showcase for Amanda Ribas. I think Amanda Ribas is about to beat the shit out of Paige Van Zandt, and I think that is the point of this right here. So I'm excited for that. I'll talk more about that when the full card comes out. Another fight that was announced that I'm real hype about, but disappointed I won't be able to see live. UFC 252, August 15th, is the main event. Will be Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier. The final fight, the trilogy. The rubber match, is that what it is? It's the end of it all, ladies and gentlemen. I was at the second fight in Anaheim in August. Right after I got married, ladies and gentlemen. Right after I got married. About a week after I got married, ladies and gentlemen. And I was like, yo, I gotta go to the fight. I gotta go to the fight. If I was able to go to this fight, it would be the anniversary of me going to that last fight. Actually, this is a year later from the fight that they're booking this, and I can't fucking go, unfortunately. Really wish I could, but August 15th, you got Stipe Miocic taking on Daniel Cormier for the UFC World Heavyweight Championship. It's about to be a fucking slobber knocker, my nigga. It's about to be a fucking brawl. I can't wait for that fight. I've been waiting for them to book that. I mean, before pandemic, and I couldn't go, but it is what it is. I'll be happy to watch it from here. I've been enjoying the fights from here. Nobody charges me $12 for these Trulies. They don't. They're actually I pay for them. They're whatever, I pay for them. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys the social medias. If you want to go ahead and follow this podcast, it's at Babylon5Pod. If you want to follow my personal account, it's at My Name is Jermaine. That's on Instagram and Twitter. If you want to email this podcast, the email is Babylon5podcast@gmail.com. You can follow this podcast at babylon5.podbean.com. You can listen to this podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, nigga, pretty much anywhere podcast stream. If you niggas got Xbox, go ahead and add a brother. It's my gamer tag is SauceBoss414. You can check out the merchandise at teespring.com/store/BOFpod-shop. You can go ahead and watch me play with myself at twitch.tv/Babylon5. And you can go ahead and check out the merchandise at patreon.com/Babylon5. I'm your host, Jermaine Event. It's episode 43. Distractions. I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here. Say goodbye to you, Aunt Rena. Rest in peace to you. And I hope you guys have a good week. Peace.